All right, guys. All right, guys. As y'all know, we're doing these every Sunday, and luckily for us, I have my man Rick Sheldon, who is the owner and founder of Open Dispo, come and stop in. And Rick and I are going to drop some knowledge on y'all. And one of the things I'm really hoping to focus on is extreme ownership, because one of the things that Rick and I were just talking about right before we started the recording is Rick has done a really good job of modeling other people inside the community that have given him the customer experience and journey that he wanted, and how we're going to talk a little bit about how he's doing that now with Open Dispo. So, Rick, do you mind just kind of introducing yourself and talking a little bit about how you got here?
Yeah, I joined Sub 2 in February of 21, so just over 3 years in. And I jumped into real estate actually full time. Well, I had bought one rental with a W-2, but then that, COVID time happened and got laid off and went full time into real estate instead of getting into something else. So I honestly hadn't really done a deal, even though I bought that rental. And even though I bought it in a probate situation, I didn't really do it intentionally. Like it wasn't as a real estate investor so much. It was just buying a house. So once I jumped into real estate full time, I really felt like I hadn't really done a deal. I just started building a sales machine, kind of following YouTube University and Brent Daniels, TTP, hired a teammate, had them cold calling and setting leads, and I would just, call those appointments and stuff. Took a lot of any sales process. You can get lucky and do a deal really quickly, but if you're going direct to seller and building a sales funnel, it takes several months. So it took like 4 or 5 months to get my first deal. And that really coincided with when I joined Sub 2. So I was like on my own for 4 or 5 months, joined Sub 2, and then, started doing some deals. And I did kind of went through the normal progression I think people do, which is like wholesaling deals and then starting to get into the creative stuff when I was learning all that, and then wholesaling creative deals, and then trying to move into keeping more of the deals, like doing wraparound mortgages and things like that. And then the last couple of deals that I bought, the last couple of portfolios I bought are just created like Sub 2, or actually, sorry, seller finance portfolios that I've kept as rentals. So I feel like that's like the trajectory. Well, at least for somebody with like OCD who doesn't really stick with one thing, that's kind of like the natural progression if you do bounce around a bit. So I did all those things, and then yeah, I really always was building systems. I was always like the integrator. Well, actually, interestingly enough, I was the acquisitions person in my first partnership after joining Sub 2. And I had been in sales from before real estate. So I had a good handle on that acquisition visionary side, but I always wanted like the systems fleshed out more. So that's what I gravitated towards. And then I guess what happened was in February or like January of 23, I learned how to use Zapier to build one of those AI chatbots when all the AI craze was happening. And then people wanted to learn about that. So I started teaching other people how to do that. Then they just wanted more of that. So, that's where that, I don't think this is exactly the definition of extreme ownership, the way I feel about it, but one part of it is, like the extreme ownership of starting to just take on more and more of that process for the people that I was working with. So not only the chatbots, the CRM, then the organizational side, like the Google Drive stuff and all that. So yeah, I feel like I've given you enough ammo to fire some questions, and I'll stop
Well,
rambling.
I feel like when I say extreme ownership, though, the way in the context I mean it, that, and especially how I see it with Open Dispo, is that you guys communicate proactively, and there are no blurred lines. There's no like, oh well, this was supposed to get done today, but it will get done eventually. It's like, no. So far, everyone I've communicated with, whether it was you or Daniel or Anna or whoever, has told me flat out like, hey, look, your call's at this time. We're meeting for this long. After the call, we're gonna do the thing. The thing is gonna be processed in 3 to 4 days, which in my case was A2P and 10 DLC for a new marketing number. and it'll be ready to rock and roll here in 3 to 4 days. But if it's ready sooner, we'll let you know.
Mhm. Yep. Yeah, exactly. And actually, I totally agree that it is that like do what you say part of things, but also, stuff still happens, not to you, I guess, but we do miss deadlines once in a while. And the other component of the extreme ownership is, just don't make excuses and don't try to put the blame elsewhere. Just say, oh, sorry, it's not done. It will be done ASAP.
Right, but I think too the important lesson there is you're never gonna bat 1,000. Like
Right.
no matter how good you are, no matter how nice you are, no matter how good I am, like you and I are never gonna bat 1,000. But it's just communicating the whole way through and making sure that what you started still gets finished.
Yeah, exactly. And my thing is, this isn't so much on the extreme ownership side, but it goes in line with like do it correctly more so than do it the quickest, I guess. So not to say that any of these processes take all that much time, but I also, on the extreme ownership side of things, it's like I kind of have like this really innate need to like make it done right. So if I'm building a workflow or something, there's an easy way usually with limitations or little bugs that could be uh, left in it, or you could maybe make it 3 times as much work to work out that little bug. So, we try to do our processes in the correct way as well, which yeah, I think ties into that extreme ownership.
Were you ever an athlete, Rick?
I played basketball until I got exercise asthma in
Yeah.
about seventh
So
grade.
you probably know the analogy like to touch the line, like when you're running suicides.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's what I think of, right? Like there's always that one lazy MFer that's like, I got close enough. I stomped my foot next to the line. I'm gonna just keep run back so I
Yeah.
don't have to bend over and touch the line. And it's like, no, dude, you stop. You bend down, you touch that damn line, and then you go.
And then they get the whole team to run twice as much because they said they were going to.
Right. And that's the kind of coach and the kind of leadership that I want to provide to people in the community is like showing them that there is no easy steps. There are no shortcuts. The shortcut is if you do it right the first time, you won't have to do it again.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see. Rick, Emma also wants to know, she said she'd love to hear about the purchasing of your rental portfolios. What did you learn and what would you have changed?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's actually interesting because I think the two the two answers I'm gonna give, they just came to my head when you said that, and maybe I'll think of more things to add, but they kind of conflict with each other. So take this for, what it's worth. The first part, what I've learned while buying these portfolios is a really cool strategy. I never really heard it talked about much before, but I accidentally did it. Like basically while negotiating, it was just kind of on a whim that we threw this part out and it ended up being a big part of the strategy. So we were I bought like two portfolios, one in Cleveland and one in Greenville, South Carolina. So the one in Cleveland was the first one that I bought, and the way that I did it was 5 properties and 100% seller finance, 10% down payment, and 5.5% interest. The down payment we negotiated onto just one of the properties. And that was like we didn't really even have that in our strategy from the beginning. But by putting the whole down payment on the one house, I soon after sold that house on the market, got all my cash out, and essentially had the 4 houses with no money in them. So that's something I learned. But I guess, and then the next thing I learned is what I would have changed or what I will change moving forward. Um, I think it's better to buy an apartment building with 5 units than a 5 unit portfolio of single family houses because all those maintenance items are multiplied by 5. There's a lot of, especially these houses in Cleveland, because they're not, they're not they're not poor performers, but they're below average performers because of the fact that the maintenance adds up. And that would have been heavily mitigated if instead of buying a 5 single family properties, I bought a 5-unit apartment.
Yeah, that's pretty epic. And I'm sure because like you said, if there's 5 different roofs, that's 5 roofs you have to replace.
Um,
It's so much easier, even though that one roof might be really expensive,
Yeah,
it only gets so expensive. Like it can only increase exponentially so many times under one roof as opposed to like you said, 5, 6, 10,
yeah,
12, whatever your number is.
yep. And roofs or driveways. The driveways are getting me. No, they one of the houses has a pretty bad driveway and the other one needs fixed as well. That's the Midwest for you with those winters.
I was gonna guess foundation problems because that seems to be an expensive one too.
Yeah, no, nothing too crazy. It's like, I'm happy that I bought the portfolio. It's just I think a apartment building with one foundation, yeah, it's just a little bit easier to manage.
Aiden, go ahead and mute yourself, brother. What you got?
Um, what's up, y'all? I was just gonna say this reminds me of Hunter Thompson because you know how we're doing Hunter Thompson's modules.
Mhm.
Reminds me of when he was talking about how multifamily and apartments and whatnot are much more scalable than buying individual houses because
Mhm.
of these very reasons. That's
Yeah,
pretty much all I wanted to say.
look at Pace as well. I don't know the exact numbers anymore, but I know that Pace grew a single family portfolio very consistently with a huge supply of deals from all of us sub 2 students and his, integrator and marketing channels. So they've been, buying single families for much longer than they have multifamilies, but their
Right.
portfolios really freaking swelled up when they've started picking up multis.
And mobile
Right.
homes too, which are
Well,
treated essentially like multis.
yeah,
Those are
and those
cash
are
cows.
And those mobile home parks and RV parks and things like that, they have a lot of the value tied up in like the land, like outside of the land value. So you can do the cost seg and get like a very high percentage of the total depreciation up front.
Right.
Yep. Jill Jensen was just telling me about that last week, and she mentioned that like basically for her to cash flow a property, she bought one that's cash flowing already, and it's only at 60% occupancy.
Nice.
So
You said RV park or
Yeah,
yeah,
mobile home?
mobile home parks and RV parks, that applies to both of those. And I think the biggest contributing factor is like the improvements that they basically say goes into the value of the property. Like I think what it is it's because it's kind of like improving the land, it counts more of that type of stuff as the total value. I'm not quite sure exactly on why, but
I
I did luckily hire my first good CPA, my first CPA that I'm like really excited to work with. And we're gonna do a cost seg on that. So I'll learn a lot this year.
Right.
I could totally see that being a thing that like, it being closer to raw land, you're adding more value to that. And so because there's no houses built on it per se, since it's prefab houses, it would you'd be benefiting, like I said, the raw land and taking that value back out of it and getting that depreciation. Because what Jill told me was if you were to donate, I mean not donate, if you were to invest 100 grand in her fund, you can take roughly about half of that in the first year, and then you can still take about a fifth moving forward every subsequent year after that. So depending on the deal, there is the potential for you to be able to depreciate more money than you actually have in the deal.
Wow.
So I know that that's why mobile home parks are hot right now because there's
We
there's
got
a lot
this
of
one.
added benefits that you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, and they just fit with the whole theme, nationwide of the affordability kind of getting out of hand for a lot of folks. So, that low income affordable housing it's gonna really do well over the long run.
And that is another thing is, as everybody always mentions, the more value you provide, it's like seeing the opportunity of demand
Right.
and serving that demand to people. And it's like it's self-fulfilling because one, you're making cash, but mainly you're helping all these people that actually need help, and everybody wins.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the truth.
Marketplace rewards, what it needs, basically.
Right.
Yeah, and we're gonna see a big shift in the market, I think, towards all of those more affordable options, whether it's co-living, pad split, or mobile home parks, things kind of that nature. Um,
Mhm.
Rick, one of the things I wanted to ask you though is like, what was that pivotal moment? What did you see when you created Open Dispo? Because obviously, right, like the market responds to whatever you're putting out there. So clearly, I feel like you had to see that there was a gap somewhere, and you were like, I'm gonna take this gap, I'm gonna own it, and I'm gonna work within this niche, and I'm gonna crush it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was so much as like one event that led to that. Like I said, I had a natural tendency towards that. And I think what actually prevented me to a degree, as long as, what held it up as long as it did was me not actually understanding that by diving deep into one avenue, the income potential is like much higher than you would expect. I remember talking to a friend of mine, maybe 6, 8 months before really starting to dive into Open Dispo, which was around February of 23. So maybe mid 2022. My friend and I were talking about how I was gonna, earn, let's say I could make maybe 100,000 on this project. I could make maybe 100,000 on this project. And if I could, have enough bandwidth on this other project, maybe I could make 100,000 on that. And that was kind of like in my head, like each one had a natural cap, which I didn't really put much math into or, much attention. I just kind of felt that way. And my friend was like, no, if you should just go all in on just one of these things. And he even told me that that thing was this realm, kind of like providing integrator support. And he saw me and how I get into a flow state when I'm working on those types of things, and how much nobody else in the industry, or how few people in the industry think that way and want to build those types of things. So, same idea with the low income housing. It's just like there's a huge demand and a big gap where most people are visionaries. And I think there's, if I had to guess, like a 3-to-1 ratio of visionaries to integrators. So the thing is, by diving into it, like I didn't really have as big of a grand plan until I started to see how much demand there was. So once I started kind of providing the services, then more people were flocking to it and, just asking. And at that point, there wasn't even really a core service. It was just kind of like, I was becoming more of like the tech guy or the CRM guy and the chatbot guy, that type of stuff. And then just by diving deep into that realm and kind of pausing the acquisition business, or the wholesaling business. I still buy real estate, but by focusing less on the wholesaling business and way more on the software side, the income expanded beyond what I had projected for all three of those ventures before. So just by diving into the one, it's like exploded more than I could have imagined.
Yeah, and I feel like that's how most businesses are started, right? Like you said, it starts out as an idea that you want to tinker with. And because that was how my business started before real estate, before step two and everything, was it was like, there's an opportunity. I have the equipment I need. I have the knowledge I need. Why not? Let's go out and get proof of concept. But what I'm curious to hear from you is there's usually a moment I find where you get that confirmation that you're on the right path. Because I know for me, what it was somebody told me that they needed us to keep showing up every week, and they needed, our services to the point that my buddy at this point was calling people in the parking lot, like, do you need a guy? I've got a guy, and his name's Adam. He's a badass.
Yeah.
So did you have one of those moments or several of those moments where it kind of pointed you and said, okay, cool, I'm on the right path with this?
Well, so I'll give you the the thing that I know is true, I guess, based on, like I know that it's a service that's needed. I know that it's something that a lot of people struggle with, and by providing, integrator support, essentially, it really makes a difference in people's businesses. So there's the feel good reason, which I know is true, and it's not that I'm gonna downplay that at all, but I'm not gonna pretend that the money wasn't a big part of it. So when I could, hop on a call with a new friend, like a sub 2 student or somebody else, and within a 20-minute, 30-minute phone or Zoom call, I could find out that they're willing to, start paying me a monthly fee in order for this like thing that I know how to provide to them. And they value it to that level that they'll sign up for it without without knowing me, and without having a big relationship. Like, they need that thing that much that I can increase my monthly revenue or my monthly income by like 200 or 300 bucks with a 30-minute phone call. Like, I won't pretend that that wasn't the type of thing that really got me hooked. It's like, boom, within 30 minutes, my monthly income is 300 bucks higher. Like, that was pretty rare when buying, like, to buy a rental to get that performance. You of course get a lot of other benefits like depreciation, principal pay down, and appreciation. But as far as cash flow goes, it was like unmatched for me.
Yeah, because like you said, you could get on for 30 minutes and increase your monthly cash flow by 300 bucks.
Yeah.
And that's okay too, right? I find that like for most business owners, or whether you're in real estate or outside of real estate, or you do something that supports real estate, like in the case of Open Dispo, right? Like a lot of times that stuff starts out as like somewhat selfish, but what we realize is really quickly is the butterfly effect that we can have, because you now employ more than just yourself.
Mhm.
Right? So like how many other people at this point are eating because of you, or they have a stable home and a stable income because of what you created?
Yeah, yeah, and a lot more coming soon. But the other part of that though is, I think of it more like the money is a very clear indicator, but it's not, people don't just give you money. They give you money when they receive value. So
Mhm.
it's just like the more money, that means the more value I've been able to provide. So it's just like my skill set provides more value to the marketplace in this role than it does in other roles.
Yeah, I can agree with that. What's up, Aiden? What you got?
I was just gonna ask, Rick, you guys hear me?
Yeah,
Yep.
we got.
Oh, now he's muted. Um,
I was just gonna ask Rick, when you're it sounds like, when you were starting out and like when you started deviating from like the kind of normal path that sub 2 members go down, which is, I would say, like sailing or like whatever it may be. That's the most popular one in the community. Like for people starting out, they kind of almost people kind of almost coerce you into doing it. Um, when you kind of pioneered in this sense, like going off the beaten path and creating, like you created Open Dispo, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
yeah, actually, I wouldn't even call it a detour. Here's how I think about it.
Okay.
In Pace, he provides so many different avenues to make money, and some of those avenues are more active, some of them are more passive. I think most of us in this community, we want long-term rentals. We want at least long-term notes, like we want passive income, whether it's from creative deals or from straight up rentals. So that's the end goal for I would say almost everybody, myself included. There's an active income component, and you need the active income to drive towards the passive income and also just to live. So the active income is the more variable component, which is like, okay, you could do wholesaling, you could do gator lending, you could do fix and flips, or you could do a SaaS business where you provide services to each other. So that's just my version of the active income, but it all fits in line with all of our goals of have enough money to live while you're building the life that you want to through real estate.
Right. Okay. Yeah, cool. Okay, so with that in mind, that kind of brings up another question. Like, how did you navigate, I guess, doing that when you, because I know there was times when, you know, you're creating this business that you created that you're kind of in no man's land or you don't know what to do. How did you like get through and weather the storms when you know, don't necessarily have a direction or you don't know what to do? Like, what was your, I guess, strategy, or who did you go to? Do you have a mentor, etc.? Starting out.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'll just touch on that last part first because I had a ton of friends and like mentors is a way to phrase it, but just friends in the community who are better than me at each of the things that I'm doing now. You know, like
Right.
Jimmy Fuentes comes to mind. Jimmy Fuentes is the freaking man. He taught me so much. And there's a couple different Jimmy Fuenteses, you know, like I learned some things from these people. I learned some things from these people. Another one is Oscar with bookkeeping. Holy crap, that was something that I really hate, bookkeeping and taxes, and Oscar's a great mentor friend in that realm. So there's definitely a ton of people that you'll be able to rely on for each of these little core skill, you know, things. But the first part, tying it back to the extreme ownership, it's like I would have been kind of lying to myself. Well, maybe there's like some questions about what's best to focus on, but I think my take on building a business is there's so much work to go around and most people don't do most of it. And the extreme ownership component that I took for the first year, I'm still embracing it. My calendar's 10, 12 hours a day, but for especially the first year, it's like we just did more than most people do. Like there's just so much work that needs to be done to build a business that most of us know what those things are. It's just about like asking what's the best way or how do I do it without having to do that. But you know, if that thing needs to be done, it just needs to be done. So I don't know if that's helpful to answer your question, but it's just like there's a ton of things we all know need to be done and just freaking doing them all.
And just
Okay.
execute that emotion.
Yeah, like, so what I think I'm hearing you say is like delegate as efficiently as possible and use others around you that are use others around you to fill the gaps in your skills, in your own skill sets, right? Did I get that right?
Kind of, except I would maybe put the focus the other way. It's like I'm just gonna freaking work all day, every day and build my business. And then when I can't handle it, I bring people on to pick up the project that I'm like, okay,
Right.
now I've built the KPI tracker. Now I know how to get the data from here to here to here and build it using these formulas. I've done it a bunch of times. I worked hard like for weeks to make it so it works. Now I can teach somebody else how to do it and like hire somebody and teach them how to do it. So
Right.
it's not so much kind of having a big list of projects and dishing them out as much as like in Open Dispo, we have a ton of workflows. I think I built almost all of them. So it's the team's there to help facilitate transferring that to other people so other people can get value from using those workflows. But really, I built like the whole thing, and not to sound like, you know, that might sound a little egotistical now that I say it out loud, but it's real. It's like real. It's really, if you go in there, there's all these workflows. Adam will see them soon, or you already have. I built like all that stuff basically. So it's just like, it just takes a ton of grueling hours.
Right. Right.
Can
Yeah.
I add something onto that?
Mhm.
Come on up, Emma.
Awesome. So I feel like your question also like lends its hand to something that I see a lot in the community where we come in, we have these avatars that are given to us, and it's amazing to have those avatars to grab a hold of, but that's not where you stop, right? I love Mel Palmer's story. She actually started out as a TC and she did not like being a TC. But in the process of seeing all these deals that were going right and wrong, she found her lane. She figured out what she could contribute to the community. And now she is leading the safety course and she has a due diligence setup and a company and everything. So plug yourself into the community, find the avatar that it best suits you, and like Pace says, cling to that for 90 days. You'll be surprised in those 90 days what you find out about yourself and what path you choose to blaze for yourself in the community. I mean, right here, you know, Rick is talking about he created something and he's been able to give that to the community as a service. And that wasn't there at the beginning, right? And he found his own path that he had to trailblaze himself. So start somewhere, but always don't limit yourself to the avatars that are given to us. You know,
Right.
grow outside of the box.
Right.
Yeah, and my kind of, you know, that's awesome that you brought all that up. I totally agree. And, you know, just to circle it back to mine, is like, if you're a visionary and you don't yet have an integrator, buckle up, you're gonna do some integrations. You know,
Well, and to what Emma's saying, right? I've just been saying this recently too. You need to almost create your own avatar, and it's not that it has to be officially recognized by Pace or anybody like that. Like there was no avatar for CRM specialist or CRM creator or, you know, or a SaaS operator inside of Sub 2. But I feel like if you were to ask me what Rick is, that truthfully in my heart is more suited to be his avatar than just a plain level of an integrator, because he's not just like an operator and he's not just, you know, an office manager. He's doing so much more, right?
Right.
And just like I've been telling people, like, I don't look at it as just being a connector. That's the whole reason why I rebranded this series and called it the Kingmaker Leadership Series, is because I'm more worried about playing chess and putting the right people into the right spots so that way they can be successful.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So to summarize kind of what I'm hearing, sometime, especially starting out, you're going to have to put the axe to the grindstone, put your head down and grind, and then you look up, and then kind of revelations come as you do that. And it kind of just, once you get those systems built in place or whatever, then you have the chance to look up and, you know, do what you need to do. Kind of, is that kind of, you know, and also don't box yourself into, I never really liked, you know, calling myself a certain role either, to like kind of go off what you guys are saying, because yeah, I feel like I have a lot of different skills, but sometimes I don't know. It's finding where you can fit in, kind of like you said, Adam. And yeah, is that kind of
yeah, no, I think you summarized my take on it pretty well.
okay? Yeah.
To continue with your analogy, because right, I sharpen blades all the time. You gotta sit there. You gotta put the blade to the grindstone or to the whetstone or whatever you're using. You gotta take the file. You usually have to put a marker on the edge, because once you shave those metal shavings off, the permanent marker comes with it. That's how you keep track of it. So every once in a while, you do have to pick your head up, take a look at your blade, and say, okay, I still have like little red marks here. I need to fill the holes here. I need to sharpen my edge here. And you have to stay on that. You have to stay grinding. You have to stay doing
Right.
the things,
Right.
and look up every once in a while, because eventually that compound effect kicks in. You can turn around and you can say, holy hell, dude, look at how far I've made it
Right.
in 3 months, in a year, in 3 years, like whatever your timeline is that you're looking back upon.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't think you have to like really try, like, you don't have to think of this like, oh, I'm gonna try being an integrator and a visionary and things like that. But just the sheer volume of work relates to more like, if you were only focused on being a visionary, for example, there's just a lot more in the tank that most people don't tap into, regardless of what your avatar is. It's just like that's the bigger thing more than most things, is like you could really make any business model successful. It's so
Right.
crazy to me how there's probably more than 50 legitimate business models, at least more, like there's probably more than 100 legitimate business models in Sub 2, and any of them work. Some work better than others, and some work better than others with particular skill. Like some relate more to a particular personality or skill set more, but you know, they all work, and they all take a lot of work to work.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think I
There you go.
mentioned this to you off camera, but I had a conversation with James Zeger like a week or two ago, and what he introduced to me is something that I feel like we all kind of intuitively knew, right? But like even within the avatars, I would argue that there's sub avatars. And he was saying this in the terms of integrators, because I'm an integrator and you're an integrator, but we're two different kinds of integrators.
Mhm.
And so he's working on in their own little community that he's doing with James Hostert and them. They're going to put names to all those sub avatars, because there's the operations manager or the COO or the operator or the systems architect or
Mhm.
the admin or the office manager. And those are all integrators, just like a TC is an integrator. You know, Emma's a good example of that.
In top tier, we actually break down what a transactional coordinator is, and that there are like 10 types of TCs out there. Like, so we actually have dived into that and, you know, kind of said like, you might be this kind of TC or that kind of TC. We're both TCs, but we're completely different. We have different personalities. And it's true. There's always those niches within each avatar.
Mhm.
Adam, this kind of gives me an idea of like creating a whole program, speaking of SaaSes, where like it's just dedicated to just like, because you started this Zoom to, what is this Zoom called, Kingmakers or something
Yeah, Kingmaker.
something like that. Yeah, kind of going along those themes, like even integrating AI into it. Like there could be a whole program dedicated to like guiding people along their process to help them figuring out who they are and how they fit into places and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I haven't quite figured out a more automated way to do that. At the moment, right now, basically people book a 30-minute phone call with me, and kind of like you did in the very beginning, Aiden, you're like, I'm not really sure what my avatar is. It's like, okay, well, let's explore your strengths, your weaknesses, the things you enjoy, the things you don't enjoy, right? Because the end goal of
Yeah.
finding your lane is that you're doing the things every single day that fill your cup. Because if you're not doing things that fill your cup,
Yeah.
even if it's okay, even if the money's good, even if all of these other like weak justifications as to why you should be doing it, like Rick was saying earlier with the wholesale business, like sounds like he was doing pretty good with wholesaling, but doesn't it also doesn't sound like it was filling his cup not only for what he wanted from a cash flow perspective, but also what he wanted to do as far as daily activities. Because I don't think, Rick, you'd be on the phones hammering for 12 hours a day acquiring wholesales.
Nope, I love sales. Sales is one of my favorite. It's like I came from sales. I still do sales now. I love sales. But yeah, doing the acquisitions, like I said, the flow state, I never got into a flow state in that role. But the reason I'm able to happily do 12 hours a day almost on average right now is because I love it. You know, I'm so freaking interested in the business principles that make a good CRM, and you know how to use that to apply it to real estate and make it so it's quick and easy to get something rolling regardless of your lead system. Basically, that's like that's what I love doing. So it's like if somebody gives me a good idea, my Saturday might be consumed by making that work. That's not the case. Not that you can call sellers too late on a Saturday anyway, but you know, it's not like there's much that can happen that really motivates you to call sellers for 10 hours, for 6, 7, 8 hours. Even if you love solving problems, like that's what it does come down to, is you're able to solve really big problems for people. And that's the opposite of a flow state. That's draining. It's like, it's awesome to help people, but it drains you. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, just to tie that together, it's like the work ethic that I talk about, like how much work you have to do, tying it back to what we just talked about here is like, yeah, if you do something that fills your cup that you love, it's easier to get that much work about that output out, you know, that work volume as an output.
Yeah.
Right.
Because like you said, it's filling your cup. And when you can't pour from a half empty cup, that's only going to leave you completely empty. So you have to have an overflowing cup in order to continue to pour and pour and pour. Um, which is why like I really enjoy connecting with other sub 2 students. Like that fills my cup because I can get on a 30-minute phone call with them and we can problem solve right here, right now. Especially since I have a little bit of both visionary and integrator tendencies, I can kind of help you regardless of what side of the aisle you're struggling on.
Yep.
So yeah, Aiden, does that answer your question a little bit?
Yeah, yeah. I was kind of just getting an idea because like even listening to you guys talk about your journeys and figuring out, you know, the nuances of yourself and how you interact with your business and what fills your cup. It's just so nuanced that like love Pace's Avatar series and stuff and like his videos, but like it's not interactive. It's not interactive and like it's just a one-time video. Like that's good to help you start out, but like as you're building a business, I feel like having something there to like answer your questions or like, you know, that kind of can take memory of you and know the nuances of your day to day would help so much for people starting out like me. You know what I mean?
Or to help point things out to you. Because like I said, that friend of mine, it was obvious to him that this was what I should have been doing. And it even took me another 6, 7 months before I really committed to it
Right.
as a primary thing. So I think it's just, if you do have your head down and you're grinding, it's harder, if unless you do look up, like Adam mentioned, if you don't look up like that and, see where you're at and reassess, it's easy to just stay on that path when, having friends who can point things out to you can, you know, I think my example is a little bit more, it's a little bit different because it's so different from the normal real estate strategy. So it was kind of easier for me to say this, but your friend might point out, hey, you seem a lot happier when those cash deals close really quick, and you're always pulling your hair out when you're trying to assign a sub 2 deal. Why don't you focus on cash deal? Like something as simple as that could be the thing that sets you down a more direct path, and then dive deep into that one direct path that's going to maximize income potential instead of trying to do a little bit of all those 3 different things.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a good answer. Thank you, Rick. I'm gonna leave you guys alone now. I gotta go to Trader Joe's, but thank you guys for the answers.
Yeah.
Well, that and Rick, I feel like you'll probably agree with this. I feel like it also comes down to making those promises with yourself and keeping them, right? Like when I joined the community, I was also heavily encouraged to wholesale. I was encouraged, like, why don't you just get on the phone, start cold calling? Why don't you do this and why don't you do that? And I hate to tell you guys, but like, why don't you, or you should, or you need to, are probably the worst ways to start a sentence before you communicate an idea that you want somebody to take ownership of. Like, that's just not how that works. I never once messaged Rick and I'm like, hey, you need to do this inside of Open Dispo. But what sparks, I think, Rick and I's good conversations is I'm like, hey, bro, how fucking sick would this be if we could figure out a way to make this shit work?
Yeah, the better 2 words is what if this happened?
Yeah. Or how could we, or do you think it's possible if, right?
Yeah.
Like, like I was talking when I was talking to James the other week and we were talking about the different levels of integrators and whatnot, he was telling me about some of the stuff that he's working on, and I was telling him about some of the stuff that I'm working on that you and I have discussed, like the scraper bots and integrating that directly into Open Dispo. And one idea that he had is we're eventually going to just get all the integrators together, probably myself and my team and you and your team and the 2 Jameses and their teams, because what they want to do is create some kind of system that we can eventually turn over to a software engineer and say, hey, guess what? This is how you get something from the county list to under contract in one system.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That will be cool when it's feasible to do the AI component to lock up the deals. So where I'm at with that, even me as the AI, CRM provider, it's like I don't think the AI is ready yet. At this point, it's expanding so rapidly that who knows when it will be. But I think at this point, the best way to coexist with AI inside your CRM is to use it to help you make like data decisions, to help pre-qualify leads and set appointments, not so much to get into the weeds of negotiations yet.
No, not yet. I know that there's like AI auto dialers like Air AI, and they're saying that they still have a lot of gaps in those too. But I think even if we can create a system that will eventually be able to plug AI into negotiations, like you can leave the manual gaps, right? And you can say, hey, guess what? It's your turn to go out, negotiate the terms. And then when you come back to the system, you plug in the terms, and then it will kick out whatever the next step is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just it kind of conflicts a bit. I love AI and I will continue to always use AI to plug holes that I think it should be used for. I think it does kind of conflict sometimes with the extreme ownership principle though. So like I have several different types of clients who come in. Let's compare two of them though. The type of person who's doing low equity agent outreach. And both of these strategies work, by the way. So, like if you're doing either one, again, focus on that and it'll work. But of the two camps, camp one being, hey, I want the leads to come in, and when they come in, I want to turn the AI chatbot on. I want the chatbot to send an email with a LOI link or maybe even a PDF, but I want to initiate the conversation through automation and have AI, pull out the details of the property and negotiate the LOI and deliver it and whatever else. And then even further, start to negotiate the purchase contract. So that last part is what we don't really even get into the realm of at the moment, but everything up till the negotiations through AI is possible at the moment. Like you can do all that. You can get it in, turn the bots on, initiate outreach, and use AI to a pretty good degree. The second camp, though, let's get the leads dropped in and dropped into a very, easy to access list that our acquisition person is going to call manually. And then if it's a good fit, then send our LOI. That there's like much lower throughput, much more work. But of those two camps, that camp is crushing it more. So the AI is really great. And also like if you can have the volume where a lower conversion rate or several lower conversion rates, because it's going to be lower conversion on, the first conversion from new person to LOI delivered. It's going to be lower on the conversion of LOI delivered to accepted. So if you're willing to live with those lower conversion rates, then the AI strategy is solid. But, I just think of those two strategies, if you're willing to take the ownership of like actually doing the work to get them delivered how it's recommended to you right here, right now, then it's, you'll be better off for it. So I guess your comment about the all-in-one system brought that up, but yeah, I just wanted to point that out because those two workflows both exist and I set them both up all the time and I just see the results.
Yeah, and I think too, right? Like the real answer is somewhere in the middle. It's some form of a hybrid of the two, because you don't need the highest conversion rates, but you also don't need the highest volume either. You need to find whatever that harmony is for you. And like in my business, at least what we did was we implemented a whole new website, which gave us a driver dashboard. So we're not booking anything manually anymore. It's not because we don't want to talk to people on the phone. It's just so much easier, and it takes the time and pressure off of myself or my team
Right.
to not answer 1,000 questions every single phone call. Like, why should every phone call last 30 minutes when I can send you to the website, which has product descriptions, pictures, approximate weights, piece counts, and it has a calendar.
Yep.
So they can schedule their delivery and they can drop a pin. So even if they have a large property, we can go directly to where the pin is because it navigates through Google Maps through longitude and latitude.
Nice.
Right.
Yep,
So
that is the clear advantage of doing that. So that's the thing. It is if you track your, and this is another thing I'll touch on in a sec, but if as long as you're tracking well enough and you are you're aware of those conversion rates and you're kind of making the decisions that make sense for your business, and you make the decision because of that reason, because it does relieve so much operational bandwidth or operational stress, that that's a totally valid decision. And that comes back to what I was going to say is the um shoot, I lost my train of thought because I got a message over here in the side chat. The extreme ownership, I can't remember where I was going with that. What was I just talking
the
about?
we were talking about the hybrid of the workflows and how like really the best middle ground is in fact the middle ground, right? It's not solely
Yeah.
on AI and it's not solely on you because both can be soul crushing in different ways.
Yeah, but where I was heading with it was tracking. So it's important that you just make those decisions based on something. So this is something that I will totally say counts as part of extreme ownership, is whether you're, even if you're a visionary, and you need an integrator partner, or if you're an integrator and you just haven't learned it yet, or whatever the case is, your business's KPIs need to be tracked. And you need to have like some metrics that you're using to make decisions. So usually these decisions are about things like, or like let's say before AI, the most common decisions here were, what lead sources do we want to invest in which markets? Like that's what we're trying to get towards, is like, how are we going to market to these deals in this market? So to do that, you've got to track the conversion rates. So how many new contacts does it take to get a qualified lead? How many leads does it take to get an offer sent out? How many offers to get a contract? How many contracts to get a deal assigned? How many assignments does it take to get it closed? Because not all deals you get locked up closed. So understanding all those rates, or the conversion rates between those events across lead source. So you need the conversion rate for direct mail versus those conversion rates for inbound PPL versus cold calling. So like if you you need those data points to be able to really know which one you should double down on. So extreme ownership said like somebody's got to do it. Like you definitely need to track that information and take ownership of that.
Right. And like I said too, it's also keeping those personal touches in there throughout the process. And I'll kind of lay out an example for you guys so y'all can understand. Let's hypothetically Rick goes to my website, he's gonna order his firewood and we're gonna deliver it. So Rick goes through, he selects the package that he wants, he puts in his address, he schedules the time and the day, and all of this is connected to Twilio. So Twilio will send out a text that I wrote, but obviously it's written in my voice, so that way it's not just something robotic. It looks like it's coming from me, even though for scalability reasons, it's not coming from me manually every single time. And Rick will get a text when his order is assigned to a driver. He'll get a text when we're loading up, and then I show up at Rick's house. Usually I'll call him before I leave too, just to tell him like, hey, we have your address is in the GPS. We are 30 minutes out. We'll see you shortly. So we get there, knock on Rick's door. Hey Rick, nice to meet you. I'm Adam. I'm with Wildman Firewood. We're here to deliver, if you don't mind. Excuse me, guys. I was got a call coming through that threw me off. But so I knock on Rick's door. I say, "Hey Rick, would you like to show me where you're gonna have a stack it for you?" So Rick does like a job site walk, almost like we're contractors, and he'll show us, "Okay, I want it right here." All right, Rick, no problem. I'll give you a knock when we're done. We do all the hard work. We unload everything, and then I go knock on either Rick's front door or Rick's back door. Hey Rick, we're all done here. You're all nice and stacked. Why don't you come take a walk with us, take a look, make sure you're happy with it before we leave. And by the way, I took the leaf blower to your driveway so that way there's no dirt and dust and debris. And Rick says, okay. He said, y'all did fantastic. I'm really happy with the service. I mark his job complete, and Rick gets a text message then saying, hey, if you're happy with the service, would you mind leaving us a 5-star review? And that's how our workflow works in my company.
Yep, awesome. And that's back to the point about what I said at the beginning. Those things don't just happen from ideas. Like you've got workflows, you got pipelines, you've got websites, you've got calendars, you've got text templates, you've got all these different things that we all know, like, you need it. It's just, are you going to do it or not? And that's where that extreme ownership comes on in the beginning of a business, and how it relates into the employees. I'm not sure how your journey went with that, or if you have employees with that, but you do as much as, my philosophy is, you do as much as you can, that you understand how it should be done, you understand the little nuances of what might go wrong if it's not done right, or how it might go wrong. You need to like really get your hands dirty, do all of it until you can't, then pass it off.
Yep. And the only way you learn is through the experience, right? Like I've been doing this for 5 years. I did not come up with this workflow like 3 minutes after I filed an LLC. Just like my booking link, which we were talking about through Motion, like before we started the recording, I have like 5 or 6 questions that I ask people now. Because I ask people before they connect with me, what do you have and what do you need? Because the solution that I can provide for them is somewhere in between what do you have and what do you need. But I'm also asking them like, are you a sub 2 student? Would you like to be notified when I do events like this? And because that gives me the full picture that I can then reference later to come up with a better solution. But like I said, you have to do and do and do and do and get the reps in, and eventually you find more solutions inside of the solution.
Yep.
You
Yeah,
know,
I love this topic. It's a little bit arbitrary in the sense that we can't tell everybody what steps they need to really do in their business, but it's just like what we all know. I remember, well, actually, this might be embarrassing, but when I first started my real estate business, I had a nice fluffy nest egg, because I had a 6-figure sales job for a couple years prior and all that. Um, I didn't really feel much urgency, much pressure. So my first couple months, as I was cranking up that business, and maybe the reason why it took 5 months to get my first deal is because I remember having like a good 2.5 hour lunch period in the middle of the day. I would wake up early and I would, get on the daily dial. I would do some morning calls. I would have a nice long lunch where I'd take my dog on a walk. Then I'd come back and work into the evening. I still worked a good amount I probably worked more than I did at my W-2 previously, because I did work into the evenings. But I should not have been taking 2.5 hours in the middle of the day to myself. Like I should have been building all those things that I knew needed to be built. Maybe that would have cut the 5-month sales pipeline development process down to 3.
No, totally. And like I said, you got to put in those reps in order to know what you do and don't need to change, right? Like for us, we're always looking to add more value to people, just like you are with Open Dispo. We're always like, we didn't used to do all those things. It wasn't until we had customers submit the feedback, similar to how you get feature requests. They're like, yeah, well, before you leave, I really need you to like clean up the driveway or whatever. Well, I don't carry a broom and dustpan all the time, because like where's all that gonna go? But it's finding those tiny little value adds that increase the perception of value to here, even if the cost of overhead is down here. You know, that leaf blower is $150, right? Our smallest ticket is $216. I could buy a new leaf blower with one singular order, but we we bring it with us on the truck every time, because that's all it takes is to make sure that the customer is satisfied with the way that we left the property, to where it looks like we were never there.
Yep. Yeah, no, I love that. I actually feel the same way with my business too, because imagine, you know how if you leave, well, with wood it's different, but I don't know if you mow and you get like grass on your thing and then it kind of leaves a stain and you gotta pressure wash it off. You know, like
Mhm.
imagine if you had that happen and you didn't know that you needed to pressure wash it off and you're like, oh crap, my whole thing's ruined. I can't even enjoy my driveway anymore because it's all stained up. You know, but it's a really small thing that they just don't know. That's how I feel about my business because the people that I help, they're not the integrators who have gone through all the hassle of learning how A2P works, learning how these workflows work, learning all these little things. So A2P is a great example. It's like we could do what a lot of companies do and say, okay, you signed up. Here's a little guide on how you can do your A2P. Here's a little guide on how you can do this. Here's this and that. But no, it's like we know in order for them to be successful, they need the ATP to work. We know that it's possible to teach them, but there's just going to be more issues with that. So we just take that off their radar. We don't even, you know, like make that we make it very upfront that that's not like on their responsibility. Like anything that we anything that we can do to make the whole system work just gets done.
No, totally. And, you know, it's like you said, that's why we charge a premium for what we do to the point that our conversion rates are lower, but we don't really care because those people aren't our customer avatar in the first place, right? Like our avatar is typically business owners that are a little bit more seasoned and they're usually a little bit more well off, so they actually care about the details of the property. So we're when we go onto their property, like we're making sure because, like you were talking about with the grass stains, if you butt the wood up against the brick, the sap eventually leaks out and it leaves, you know, this really hard textured surface that you actually do have to pressure wash in order to get it off. So if we're freehand stacking it, or if the rack is too close, we move the rack out. We take the old pieces off. We blow the dirt out from underneath the rack. We put the new stuff on. We put the old stuff on top so they can use that first. And we make sure it's not touching the wall, and those are all the thought process that go on up here, and I teach my guys to go on through their minds. And it sounds to me like that's what you're doing just in the software space.
Yeah, exactly. And that's also a great tip. I need to go rearrange my wood pile out here.
Oh, dude, you know that. I could talk to you about that all day.
I just bought this. It's my first. Well, so I bought houses that I've ended up living in, but
Mhm.
this house that I just bought 2 weeks ago is my first house that I bought intentionally to live in, and it has a fireplace. So I'm learning about that. So a well-timed tip.
Emma also asked, she said, I would love to hear more about your journey when you started finding individuals needing your expertise. How did you look for these individuals? How long did it take to hit that point needing to add to your team?
Well, I actually started with somebody on my team because he and I had worked together previously. And then when I was ramping up, so it was about January that I learned how to just use Zapier to build a AI chatbot. So Go High Level can connect with Chat GPT through Zapier. And then I built like a really rudimentary chatbot where you had to basically say, I want it to be able to respond up to 4 times. So I have to build in each potential subsequent response. It was like terrible compared to like how the chatbots work all now. But while built, like I started learning how that worked in January, and then I started just teaching people how that worked in February. And by that time, I had already kind of rekindled the relationship with a guy that now has been with me throughout the entire growth of Open Dispo. I cut him in on revenue, like a revenue share and everything. He's amazing. And he and I had already worked together. So I already knew that I wanted him to help me with this. So for me, it was a little bit different because, you know, I hired him right away. But yeah, it was about February when I just started talking about like AI, and AI was like really new and exciting and awesome. And I was learning how to apply it to all these different parts of real estate and chatbots, really people really loved that idea. So that really kind of prompted a bunch of conversations, you know, like, just the word was out that I knew how to build a chatbot, and that's kind of what started it all.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that's a really good story because that's how most people start, is the word just kind of gets out, and then it's like, oh crap, wait, Rick can do this.
Mhm.
You know, like I did my first capital raise, and then people just started sending me capital raises to the point that, you know, similar to you with too many projects, I was like, man, I got to put some of my integrator stuff like on the back burner. And I don't want to. I want to help those people.
Yep.
And I made a promise to them, and I'm going to keep it. But it's also like now I got to go on board. I had to onboard a whole nother developer just so that we could even get to a point where we can eventually send out those proposals.
Mhm. Yeah. Yep, you gotta give the people what they want.
Yeah, and a lot of times what I don't think what most people underestimate is that you are the value, right? So people just want value, which means that they want more of you. They want to know, like, what is Rick thinking? How would Rick do this? And, you know, I see that you guys do that really well, especially through the school communities, through both for Open Dispo as well as for the integrators.
Yep, I think that's you know, that's actually a really great highlight, or that's a great way to highlight what we've talked about here. So when I first started the business, we offered only monthly sessions, monthly plans. A few months later, we rolled in annual plans, and we did it in order to incentivize it. We basically just wanted more commitment on both sides. And in order to, like, we matched their commitment with commitment of my own, where they signed up on annual plans, that would entitle them to book up to a call a week on my calendar or somebody on my team's calendar, availability permitting, and they have to be diligent enough to schedule and all that, but they're allowed to book a call on my calendar up to once a week if they're on the annual plan. We've stuck with that offer for 9, 10 months, you know, like that stretches me thin, but it makes our clients, it gives them the support they need. So just hustling like crazy to make people successful for a whole year. And now we're rolling out things to help me duplicate myself. Like Pace talks about. School is one way that it just clicked, like, hey, let them work with let them meet each other and learn from each other, and also pose questions in a place where when I answer it, everybody gets that value. That's better, I think, than pre-recorded training modules, because I don't know what questions are going to come up when I'm building a pre-recorded module. It's like I explain what I think might come up, but having people actually ask real questions when they were going through and seeing where we were lacking in training materials or something, and then ask a question on that, it just like, it's a perfect way of me just expanding how much value I can provide to those people, and kind of like how well I can keep the masses on track. And along with that comes kind of hiring as well. So passing on my knowledge into my team and having my team be able to build the things that I learned how to build. So I learned how to build it, teach them, now they can build it. And you know, that's where I'm at now. It's just kind of coming up with these multiple ways of cloning myself and getting more of my understanding of Go High Level into the community.
Right, so that pretty soon here it'll be not, you don't book a call with Rick every week, but you could book a call with Rick's team every week.
Or Rick's AI version.
Yeah. But I mean, to your point too, I feel like, you know, you learn to put the training materials out because certain questions get asked repeatedly.
Mhm.
And that's how FAQ pages are built. That's how, you know, tutorial sections are built, is you start to notice patterns. And that's really all it is, just picking up on those and saying, okay, you know, I've had 6 people ask me this week how to properly build a workflow, like how to go through the workflow checklist to make sure, you know, like in ClickFunnels, I know they had a little green light, like it said funnel checklist. And when that little green light came up, you knew that it was ready to launch, you know. But it's like, what's that checklist for Open Dispo? Well, let's make a video on it and put it in a training section so that way, you know, people can learn better from that.
Yep. But the reason I liked how it tied into this whole theme here is because I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have started that way if I were to go back now and redo it. The working sessions are what made people like really get it. Like I was shaking people's shoulders and, you know, making them do these processes. So that is the like the hustle stage. There's always like the grind. Maybe not always. I'm sure there's some business models that are easy from the beginning and stuff, but you know, that's the part that I want to make sure nobody tries to avoid.
I was gonna say, if you find one of those business models, let me know.
Well, I feel
I
like, you
have yet to
know,
find
selling ebooks or something might be, you know, like that, like put a product on Amazon, but then again, yeah, it's just, I don't know what I don't know. Those probably all have challenges.
I mean, I've been in every which kind of industry you can imagine, probably since 19, and I've done physical products, I've done physical services, I've done online products and online services, and they all come with their challenges, guys. Like, there is no perfect answer, just like there's no perfect solution. You know, like I said, I had a barbecue subscription box, and we shut it down because it wasn't making enough money. But that's because e-commerce is really hard, and e-commerce is something I don't have the skill set in yet. And eventually, I still retained all the intellectual property. We will relaunch it at some point, but it's just one of those things that, you know, I did, like you said, I didn't know what I didn't know either. I just kind of foolhardily went into it with a partner that had too similar of a skill set to myself, and not even he wasn't even any more skilled than I was. He was just kind of there as extra hands.
Yeah. Yeah, I had one of those too.
Yeah, you probably went through the same thing I went through, where it's like, Rick, we're best friends, bro. We should do this together. Like, let's put 25 grand into building a Shopify site, and let's just go off and do this thing.
No, I didn't quite do that. I had no capital in together, and also, you know, I kept myself protected because it wasn't a best friend or anything like that. But I did find myself in a partnership briefly like that where our skill sets were like heavily overlapping. And I just kind of, and this ties back into the thing, I don't know, maybe this is uh extreme ownership, maybe it's ego, maybe it's both, maybe they go hand in hand, but the like I love how well, I'll caveat, I'll preface this by saying that I listen to my team and I ask my team, I ask my like, my whole team gets together every day and I ask the whole team about like very high level business decisions. Like we talk things through at a very high level, even like business strategy decisions. But at the end of the day, what I say goes, and that's what I didn't like about having somebody who was like we had skill sets overlapping, meaning we both kind of had we were both of our opinions held weight in those areas because we were both strong in that area. But once I was able to kind of like make the decisions and say, okay, we're gonna try Facebook ads. No, we're not gonna talk about it. We're not gonna do it a little bit and pull back. We're gonna go do Facebook ads. You know, like that I think has been very important. And I won't say that that's like what makes a company successful because most companies have a great partnership. But for me, it's like I do value the ability to kind of like make a decision and have it not get questioned once it's decided on. Like we'll talk about it together, but once it's decided on, that's the move.
Yeah, well, I feel like that is one of the concepts he does talk about it in Extreme Ownership, because I have the book. I've read the book a couple of times. And he talks about like a form of decentralized leadership. But the only way decentralized leadership works is if everyone is on the same page and you're on the same mission and you all agree that when I say go, we go.
Yep.
And like you said, the only thing that's going to stop that is if somebody sees a fatal mistake and they're like, all right, hey, Rick, hold up, like hold the phone. You know, there's a landmine right there, right? And
Yeah.
maybe an example might be we're in election season. So Facebook ads right now might not be a good idea.
No.
You know, maybe it is, maybe it's not. I don't know. but I can tell you that I was running Facebook ads during the 2020 election season, and they pulled down my ads because of punctuation.
Oh, wow. No, actually,
Like,
that was an example. I'm actually not running any ads, or honestly, this is somewhat not embarrassing. It's just, it is what it is. I don't even nurture leads anymore, because word of mouth is so positive. So,
I would say that's not embarrassing, dude. That's something to be proud of because, like you said, people tag me and stuff all the time. And they're like, "Did you see that thing I tagged you in?" And it's like, no, man, I don't have time to like review every tag, but I appreciate you sharing the word and sending people my way, just like I always try to send people your way and you would try to send people mine, right? It's that trust, it's that bond that you build. And that's why, like, when we do these, the only thing I ever ask anyone that joins on these is to pay the fee, which is just to tell a friend,
no.
because we need these recordings and we need these live audiences to grow and get out there. And I've got guests lined up every weekend for the next 4 weeks. So each one's a different person, a different avatar, and a different journey and a different niche, doing a different thing. So we can cultivate. I think right now this is basically episode number 4. We have 4 more. There'd be 8 different perspectives.
That's a cool idea. Yeah.
And I leave it open to the public so that way people can come in, like you've seen. They can just come in, they can ask questions, they can stop us, say, "Hey, I need you to elaborate on this a little bit more." So that way nobody feels like they're left behind.
Mhm. Back to giving the people what they want. Yeah, you can't give them what they want if you don't know.
Right, but it's just taking the feedback and just continuing to add these little bits of value, because you don't have to add a lot. You just have to add a little bit here and a little bit here and a little bit here. And before you know it, you're climbing that ladder. You're climbing that value ladder and you're stacking up what your time is worth to other people.
Yep, yep, that resonates. Well, I can't go too deep into it because I'm gonna have to run here in a bit, but maybe next time. Yeah. But that is
Yeah,
a bit of kind of put a being a go-giver is awesome. You can be a go-giver and get paid. You can get paid and still be a go-giver at heart. So if
I was
you
gonna say, I think we're evidence of that, right?
Yeah, exactly. So like that's the thing. It's like if you offer things for free, like it's great. It will come back to you eventually. But there will come a time to put a price tag on things. So, just understand your value to the marketplace as you're cranking things up.
Totally. And that's just it is, like I said, it's just adding a little bit of value and a little bit of value until your value is stacked so high. And the only way that it's stacked that high is if you have built the skill sets along the way in order to make your time more efficient. Because even when I first jumped into the community, I wasn't using a calendar. I was just going at it. And then my text filled up too quickly. So I got on Calendly. And Calendly had blind spots I didn't like. So then I jumped on Motion. And then I was like, okay, well, if I can use Motion and I can manage my projects and my tasks and my bookings all in one spot, that means it makes it that much easier because I know the things I do and don't need to have on my plate for that day. And I know that I need to have time gaps because they always get filled inevitably with the unscheduled calls, with the random support requests, with the things that break, with the delays, the tie up at checkout lines, like whatever, like we're all human, guys. I eat shit and sleep just like you do.
Unfortunately, that's my I have a time block on my calendar that's for taxes and bookkeeping. That's the block on my calendar that gets eaten up by things first, because I'm happy to give it away.
Yeah. And it's like that. And I was even telling you before the recording that, like, I specifically leave meetings that I enjoy going to on my calendar because they're placeholders. Because even if I can't make it to that meeting that week, like Jesse's a good example. Jesse does his Zooms every Saturday afternoon. And Jesse provides a huge amount of value to the community, helping people network, find their avatar, their strengths, their weaknesses, and as he calls, army proofing things. And this whole series is really meant to be kind of a supplement to what Jesse does on Saturday. That's why we did it on Sundays so it doesn't get in his way.
Nice. Cool. Well, do you have some more questions for me, or do you think we are gonna wrap it up here in a sec?
I think we're gonna wrap it up here in a sec. I did also want to let you know that all of these recordings end up going on YouTube unlisted, and then I upload them into Opus. So if you want the clips for your social, just reach out to me and I'll let you just log in my Opus account so you can download them straight to your devices.
Sounds good. I like
That-
open.
That'll be ready probably usually around like 10 or 11 tonight.
Yep, sounds good. No rush.
Cool. Any other final questions before we go, guys?
Adam, I did have a question for you. Would you ever be interested in expanding this into Gator and top tier and sending the invites out in that way? I'm so connected with the top tier community, and they're always looking for ways to learn and plug in and share with the greater pace communities. So just throwing that out there.
I'm not in those communities, but
Yeah.
you are.
I am.
So just like I play How Have You Met Emma? I guess that could be your turn now. Go play
Yeah.
Have You Met Adam?
As long as you're okay with me sending out and sharing those invites, I'll rock that. 100%.
Yeah. I'll
Okay.
just keep making the flyers like I do, and it's the same link every time. So I'll make sure that you have that, and you're more than welcome. You can post it in those communities. The only thing about this particular meeting was I made the post with Rick and I on the flyer, and they flagged it for self-promotion. So I rewrote it much more concise with a lot less shout outs and whatever. And I was like, hey guys, just letting y'all know this is free value. I am not selling you anything. I am giving up 2 hours of my week to do this. And that one still got pulled down. So that's why attendance was a little bit lower today. And I'm not sure why all that happened, but email support. And like I said, this week we'll have the new text line set up in Open Dispo, which we're also going to use to blast it out. So yeah, that's pretty much where we're at. Like I said, Emma, you are more than welcome to anybody that you think will get value from this. Bring them on in.
Awesome. I'll do that.
Good deal. Rick, I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. I know you're super busy. And everybody else, please just pay the fee. And, we will be here next Sunday at 4, just like we do every Sunday. So
Thanks for having me. Good to see
sign
you.
off now, guys. We'll see y'all later.
Bye.